So it was a fairly significant week for our family this last couple of weeks. So I was away last Sunday celebrating our daughter Lauren's graduation. I think we have a picture of that. Can we put that? There we go, yeah. So, my parents, those are my dad, Chris, on the right, my mom, Elaine, on the left, able to be there. And then, again, get her and Jacob, her husband Jacob, moved to he's now going on staff at Camp of the Cascades in Yelm. So if you're sending your kids to summer camp, get them registered as quickly as possible, folks, because they're basically like filled up for the entire summer. Anyway, so it's super fun to see that, get to celebrate all those things. Come home for a couple days, and then this past week we were off in Canada, and my father-in-law, Arnold Schweitzer, so we held the memorial service for him and did the internment for him, and then got back actually last night. So just a really, really significant time. And especially as I'm thinking about Father's Day, right? Like, there are moments that you just want to be at. Like, I was so grateful that my dad could be at Lauren's graduation, and then just so honored to be able to be there with a group of people as we were remembering Arnold's life. Dads really do make a difference, both for the good and sometimes for the bad. But that's the big theme of today. I just want, with the few minutes I have with you, is just this idea that our lives leave a mark. It's not a question of whether or not our lives will leave a mark. It's only a question of what kind of mark will you leave. And just think about how fathers make such a difference. Now, when I became a new father, I was a little, honestly, envious of Anita, because it seemed like there were some instincts for her that just kicked in like a lot. My wife Anita, when she became a mom, it just kicked in a little bit faster for her than it did for me. Now, she's a labor and delivery nurse, and she'll tell you stories about how after a baby is born, it's like something happens in the mother, that there's this deep, deep instinct to say, is my baby hungry? And is my baby cold? And so moms have this instinct to just, most of the time, just care for their children. And so as we bond with our mothers, especially if we had a good mother, it answers that super fundamentally important question: do I matter? And there is one beautiful human being that says, yes, you do. If you're cold, I'll take care of you. If you're hungry, I'll take care of you. So we often turn first to our mothers for nurture. But that doesn't mean that fathers are insignificant. See, I think we turn first to our fathers for identity. Why do I matter? Who am I? Why am I here? And the answers that we receive from them end up marking our lives in really, really significant ways. We all know folks that have had what we sometimes refer to as a father wound. Maybe the father wasn't there physically, they weren't there emotionally, or worse, they were abusive physically or abusive emotionally, and there's this huge, huge void. We've all known people, or maybe been that person, the middle-aged woman who can never really hold down or never really have a good relationship because her man picker is just deeply, deeply wounded because she cannot figure out how to partner up with someone who is worth partnering up with, because there's this deep, deep father void. Or, the guy he might be 60, 70, 80 years old, and yet there's still something deep within him just wanting the approval of his father. We've all seen it. Those father wounds. Fathers' lives, they leave a mark. Even the The secular sciences tell us that when there is an engaged father, that the child will generally do better in school, they'll have less behavioral problems, they have lower incarceration rates, there is more confidence, there is more emotional health, there's less promiscuity, there's less drug and alcohol abuse. When a father is engaged, when a father is in the home. I was reading a Pew Research study a couple weeks ago that says that at least in 2019, for the United States, about 25% of homes are fatherless. So that's also another reason for us to support the single moms out there all the more. 25% of homes have no father in them. Actually, that's the highest rate on the planet. The United States, at least I hope this information was wrong, but Pew Research study 2019, 25% of homes in the United States have no with children in the home have no father, and that's the highest rate in the world. Fatherlessness, I think, is the headline behind the headlines. I'm a little bit disappointed that those issues of fatherlessness and the challenges of fatherlessness aren't being talked about in a broader sphere much in current days. Because fathers make a profound difference when the dad is present, when the dad is engaged. It changes everything. I had a good dad. Saw a picture of him standing next to our good daughter, Lauren. And if there's a couple of words that would describe my father, the first one would be steady. He was a guy who was just kind of the anchor of our home. We knew that he was one that we could always count on. Steady. The second thing I always remember my dad for is he knew the value of things. Now, I'm going to say a story that I sometimes use to make fun of him. But the older I get, the more I realize this was actually a really valuable lesson that he taught me. See, in the house growing up, we had those little, like the Christmas bulbs. So we put those around the house, and we'd light them up in the wintertime. We had a blue Christmas tree lights around the house. And one summer, I found him repainting the lights. Why? Because the bulbs were still good. So he would take them down, he would paint it, and he'd put it back up. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, I don't want to waste a good bulb. And so at the time I made fun of him. But the truth is, that was a life lesson, like don't take things for granted. Don't take your resources for granted. He was raised, he grew up in immediately post-World War II England. Grew up where in his earliest days there was food rationing. Don't take anything for granted. Remember the value of items. So I remember my dad as being someone who is steady and someone that taught me. Now, growing up, I would say frugal, but now I know this is actually about knowing the value of items. So I want to take a moment before we kind of dive into the passage today, give you a chance to do a little bit of dad testifying. What is something that you remember or that you are grateful that your father taught you? What's a value that your father passed on to you? In the back, Ray.
The tool is more important than the job. Put it away.
The tool is more important than the job. Put it away. Good word. Okay, a little. Okay, over here. I need a couple of. Okay.
Take ownership for your own actions.
Take ownership for your own actions, Marcia. What, Tammy?
I said fishing.
Fishing. Yeah, fish on.
That's about the only good thing.
Well, okay. Daryl. To work. Yeah, I saw a hand in the back. Nope. He's like, no, I'm not saying nothing. Okay, gotcha. Okay, middle section. Here's your chance. What you got?
Value of family.
Value of family, says Kevin. Absolutely. Donna.
His integrity.
Integrity. That's a good dad.
And his teaching of new things to do and open your vision to what's out there.
Right? So Laura's dad taught her the value of learning. What else we got over here? Susan.
would encourage us to work, and if we didn't have enough by working one job, work a second job or a third
Right.
job. Be responsible and be grateful. Pay your taxes. Be grateful you're healthy enough to work, that you get to pay taxes, and try not to borrow money if you can avoid it.
All right. So good money sense, hard work ethic, good money sense. A couple more. A lesson your dad taught you. Patience. So he was patient with you, huh, Mark? Yeah, okay. What else we got? Generosity. Now, how did you learn generosity from your dad?
He was always willing to stand and help out when people had need.
Okay. Generosity. Paul. Jesus. So you had the advantage of a legacy of faith. And it changed your life, didn't it? Yep. Okay.
Be kind and show people that you care by the way that you treat them.
Right. Be kind. Show people that you care by the way you treat them. In the back. The value of a newborn baby's life. That's a profound one. Thanks, John. I see a hand. Again? Football. Who here had a football crazy father? All right. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, Loretta. Taught you to love. Taught you to love people. Okay.
My dad is a teacher, and he taught people that you don't ever have to stop learning. Even if you have to leave school, you can still keep learning.
Yeah, so Elena, you and Laura's dad would probably get along. They're natural teachers. So always keep learning. Always keep learning. One more in the back. Walt. Oh, two more then. Your dad taught you to respect your mother. Do you have a story behind how he did that? One that you can't share, or a scar you don't want to show me? What was that? No, I won't look there. Okay. All right, Tim. Perseverance. Oh, okay. We got a lot of people ready to share. Okay, Angie.
He taught me to save for our money.
Yeah.
Not be spending it on things that we really didn't need, but
Did he repaint Christmas tree lights?
no.
Okay, I got one up on you then.
No.
Yeah, but he taught you to save. So you and Susan's dad, you're and Susan's dad, they taught you the value of money.
The value of money,
Yeah.
and also friendships.
And friendships. Wow.
Happiness matters.
That happiness matters.
Sense of humor.
Sense of humor. So hang on to those lessons. Because what I'd like you to be thinking about is a little bit later in the service, I'm going to give you an opportunity to write down something that you hope is part of your legacy. So if that's some of the legacy that you've received, what's some of the legacy that you want to pass on? Because I wanted us to spend a few moments with one of the passages in the Bible that tells us about, gives very specific instructions to fathers. It's a single verse, fairly easy to memorize, but like all things with ancient biblical wisdom, it just speaks through the ages, speaks through the generations. And here's these words that are 2,000 years old, but I mean, these would be words that you could just read out of Parenting Today, if there's a Parenting Today magazine. I mean, this is matching the best even of our secular science now, and exceeding it. Now, it's found in the book of Ephesians, and we're going to be reading from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, and it's part of this larger section that starts in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. I'm not going to put this verse up on the screen, but I just want you to hear this. So Paul is writing to the church in Ephesus, and he says, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." So here's what it means. You got to walk in the way of love. This is a love like Jesus passage. So if you want to walk in the way of love, here's what you need to do. And he starts talking about all these different areas of life, including children, obey your parents when you're young, honor them as you get older, do that. And then it gets to Ephesians 6:4. That's our core verse of the day. Let's put that up on the screen. Fathers, there we go. Fathers, do not Here's our next word of the day. Exasperate. Say that with me. Exasperate. If it sounds like aspirate, like to choke, to exasperate is when you go, oh. Do that with me. Oh. Do not exasperate your children. Don't make your kids go, oh. Braden, what you thinking? We're talking about that. Exasperate means to frustrate. So look at your parents and go like this. Oh. Oh. Roll your eyes. Oh. You're very good at that. Oh. Don't exasperate your children. Don't frustrate them. Don't provoke them to anger. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Now, in Colossians 3:21, it says, don't embitter your children. Similar kind of idea. So don't exasperate. Do not exasperate. Let's talk about a little bit about what that means. Do not exasperate. So don't frustrate. Don't rouse to wrath. Don't provoke them to anger. So that means don't be inconsistent. That means no hypocrisy, or at least try to avoid hypocrisy in your life. And here's the other big thing I hope we hear from this is, so if you are trying to not exasperate your kids, you're trying to live in a way so your kids don't go, oh, oh, oh. You're trying to do that. That means you have to care about what's going on inside your kids. The only way you can be faithful to not exasperate your children, one, is you have to be there. And two, you have to care about their inner life. You have to care about their emotional well-being. So whoever said the phrase, big boys don't cry, was not giving biblical advice. Your job as fathers isn't to mute the emotions of your children. It's to help them understand the emotions that are going on inside of them. Why do you think we've got such a fatherless challenge in our culture and our kids are having such a hard time processing their emotions? Part of that is because dads, that's your job. Don't exasperate your kids. Or the more current version of big boys don't cry, which is not true. Why? Because Jesus was the model example of humanity, and Jesus cried. In fact, there's times he wept. So big boys don't cry, that's a lie. And then there's a modern version of that I'm not going to say in its entirety, but it's basically F your feelings. You've heard that one. You've probably seen it on banners. Whoever wrote that was not giving you biblical advice. Fathers, don't exasperate your children. Don't frustrate them. Don't provoke them to anger. You need to care about their inner life. You need to care about their emotional health. Because part of your job is to help them learn how to process their feelings, not just stuff them down. Don't exasperate your children. Because if you do, you won't have the opportunity to practice the second half of the verse. And that's the part, that's the positive example. So don't exasperate them. If it sounds like, also don't choke them, but don't don't choke them emotionally either. Instead, bring them up in the, do you remember we're not going to put the verse up on the screen again, see if you can remember it. There's two things. Training and instruction. Okay, training and instruction. And this is helpful because training and instruction are two different things, right? See, instruction is when you give the lecture, you give the good talk, and that's good. It's good to talk. It's good to tell your kids what to do. But training is different than just talking, isn't it? It's not just tell and tell and tell and tell and tell and tell and tell. It's actually show and tell. I think that's why training is listed first, is because, if you're doing a good job of training, even if your words don't come out so good, and maybe you may not feel like you're really articulate in your instruction, the message will still get across just fine. Raise your kids up in training and instruction in what? In the Lord. Training and instruction in the Lord. Now, it's good if you want to pass on your hobby to your kids. That's wonderful. I got to share one proud dad moment, okay? So we were loading clearing out Elizabeth's, here's our youngest daughter, cleaning out her dorm room and packing. Some stuff goes home for the summer. Some stuff goes off to summer camp. She's working at summer camp. She's the camp counselor all summer. And my daughter Elizabeth, actually both Elizabeth and Lauren, they pack really well. I love to pack. It's like a giant game of Tetris, like packing our car. I can get more stuff into our car. I love it. So we're packing all the stuff. She's got her bags packed, and like she's got everything in these bags. I don't know how she gets it all in there, but she does. Okay, and so we get it all in there. We get it into the car, and we stand by the car, and it's perfectly packed, and we say, "This is the way," and they say, "This is the way." Some of you Mandalorian fans, you know exactly what we're talking about. It's like, yes, that bag is packed beautifully. This is the way. This is the way. Okay, it's good to pass on things you care about, like packing a bag really good. Or fishing. Or football. All that is good. All that is good. But what is most important is passing on that legacy of faith. Training and instruction. If you want your kids to have a prayer life, dads, grandpa, they need to see you pray. If you want your kids to be in the Word, they need to see you in the Word. You want your kids to be generous. We heard that as part of a legacy, right? They need to see you be generous. That's how they learn it. Those of you that you have the legacy of good money handling, you learned that because you saw it. Work ethic, you learned it because you saw it. Training and instruction in the Lord. Training and instruction in the Lord. Good news is that the capacity to train and instruct never really goes away. I mean, it's super important when you're a young father and you've got young kids at home, because they're not listening to what you say as much as you'd like, but they are certainly watching what you're doing even more than you'd like. Training and instruction. But the good news is it doesn't. Your ability to train and instruct and influence the next generation doesn't go away. And so at whatever point in life that you say to the Lord, Lord, I want to change my legacy, that there's a second chance. And there's still opportunities to make a difference. And even if you feel like your first act in life maybe wasn't everything that you wanted it to be, you're breathing. It means there's time left. And even in the final days of your life can make a difference. Your life can and does leave a mark. Your life leaves a mark. Take just a moment. Hopefully you got the little piece of paper in front of you. You know, the somewhere on there, you can grab one of the pens in the seat pockets in front of you. Take just a moment and write down a word. Write down a word that you hope your life is known for. I'm not going to make you share it with anyone unless you want to. It could be really powerful if you do. But take just a moment and maybe even pray a short prayer. Lord, guide my thoughts. What do you want your life to be known for? Your life will leave a mark. What kind of a mark do you hope you leave? And then write that down. Write down a word, a short phrase. Now, if the message just ended there with like, hey, dads, your life leaves a mark, leave a good one. Hey, moms, your life leaves a mark, leave a good one. Dads go first. It would be a true message, but it'd be essentially moralism. Like, smarten up, God wants you to smarten up. And to a certain degree, that's true. But here's the larger truth. The larger truth. Did you know that your life has already been marked? That you've been marked by God? Earlier in the book of Ephesians, before Paul is giving all this advice to fathers and mothers and what it means to be a good parent, he writes this. This is the foundation of our faith. So Ephesians chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. And you also were included in Christ when you heard the message of truth, the gospel of your salvation. When you believed, you were, what's the word? Marked. When you believed, you were marked in him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit, who is the deposit guaranteeing our inheritance until the redemption of those who are God's possession to the praise of his glory. Do you know your life, if you have heard the message of Christ and responded to the message of Christ, your life is marked by God. You've received the Holy Spirit as the mark in your life. This is what gives your life the capacity to change. This is what gives your life the capacity to break the negative generational legacies and to leave a different legacy for your kids and your grandkids. Your life has been marked. Some of us, especially in the last few years, we've gone through all sorts of crazy stuff, and we worried about things like the mark of the beast. You've got friends that, they're all into that kind of stuff. Here's the thing I want you to know. Your life is marked either way, and if you have the mark of the Father, you cannot carry the mark of the beast. But your life will be marked by something or someone. Whose mark are you going to wear? Your life has been marked. You are God's possession. You are God's child. If you hear my voice right now, and you understand that Jesus died for you, that he is the one that is the foundation of your salvation. He is the one through whom you have forgiveness with God. If you have heard and there goes my English. Heard and understood and in any way responded to that message, your life is now marked. You belong to God. You belong to God. So, Lord, help me to mind the mark that I leave. And Lord, thank you for marking me. As we close, I invite you to stand. I just want to spend just a moment in prayer together. We can start to process a little bit of this together. And if you can't, for some reason, then that's okay. But maybe even take out that piece of paper, that word that you wrote down, the thing that you want your life to be known for, the legacy that you want to leave.